The most important issue is, did I know anything about the plan to close these lanes? Did I authorize it? Did I know about it? Did I approve it? Did I have any knowledge of it beforehand? And the answer is still the same. It's unequivocally no.
Absolutely not. There is one thing Governor Chris Christie has been consistent on, and that is that he had no part in and no knowledge of the lane closures of the George Washington Bridge in September of 2013, which was allegedly done by his subordinates as retribution toward the mayor of Fort Lee, New Jersey, for refusing to endorse Chris Christie's re-election bid.
I worked the cones, actually, Matt. Unbeknownst to everybody, I was actually the guy out there. I was in overalls and a hat, so I wasn't, but I actually was the guy working the cones out there. I don't get involved in traffic studies. I don't get involved in lane closures. I didn't work the cones. Just so we're clear on that, that was sarcastic. I would never have come out here 4 or 5 weeks ago and made a joke about these lane closures if I had ever had an inkling that anyone on my staff would have been so stupid I had no knowledge or involvement in this issue, in its planning or its execution. And I am stunned by the abject stupidity that was shown here, regardless of what the facts ultimately uncover. And so we have nothing to hide, and this administration has nothing to hide.
But today, on the first day of a trial of his former Deputy Chief of Staff, Bridget Ann Kelly, and former Deputy Executive Director of the Port Authority, Bill Baroni, there was one thing that the prosecution and the defense agreed on. Chris Christie knew. He knew about the lane closures as they happened. In opening statements, as detailed by the New York Times, prosecutors from the United States Attorney's Office said that two of the alleged co-conspirators in the case, David Wildstein and Bill Baroni, had bragged to the governor about the lane closings and that they had been done to mess with the mayor of Fort Lee because he had declined entreaties to endorse the governor's re-election. Defense lawyers have also said Mr. Christie knew. So, if the prosecution and the defense in this federal courthouse are right, Chris Christie has been lying through his teeth about this all along. Which is why perhaps it might not surprise some people to see Christie, when asked about Donald Trump and birtherism, say this.
After the president presented his birth certificate, Donald has said, you know, he was born in the United States, and that's the end of the issue. It was a contentious issue. It's just not true that he kept it up for 5 years. It's just simply not true.
It is true.
It wasn't like he was talking. No, Jake, it wasn't like he was talking about it on a regular basis until then.
That is demonstrably untrue. I mean, unless you were literally born yesterday, you saw Donald Trump continue to question the president's legitimacy for the last 5 years. But Christie's not alone in trying to rewrite the history that we all saw with our own eyes. In fact, it appears the GOP has, in total, committed itself to telling a bald-faced lie such as this to save Donald Trump from himself. That's next.
This started with Hillary Clinton's campaign, number one. Number two, it was Donald Trump who put the issue to rest when he got President Obama to release his birth certificate years later.
Donald Trump's campaign manager and his surrogates keep repeating this lie that Hillary Clinton started the birther movement and that Trump finished it. Now, this is not just false, I have to say, in a normal campaign kind of way. It's more like a bad Jedi mind trick, akin to Trump surrogates fanning out across the airwaves to tell us that Donald Trump would actually be the first woman president, and that Hillary Clinton's the one who's gone through numerous bankruptcies and once mocked a disabled reporter. So just for the record, since we all live in this, the actual real world of facts, here are the number of times Hillary Clinton called for Barack Obama to release his birth certificate. 0. Over a 5-year period, Trump did it regularly. He opined on the subject dozens of times, sometimes sticking with the subject, the birth certificate, other times branching out to issues such as Obama possibly being a secret Muslim. Here are the number of times that Hillary Clinton tweeted that Obama should release his birth certificate. 0. At least 36 times, Trump tweeted birther conspiracy nonsense. Here's the number of times Clinton darkly intimated that the President of the United States had a state office holder murdered in a plane crash to cover up his birth certificate. 0. Trump, however, once tweeted, "How amazing the state health director who verified copies of Obama's birth certificate died in plane crash today, all others lived." And aside for a moment, think just for an instant about how a plot to kill one person in a plane crash would work. Here are the number of times Hillary Clinton offered a reward for Barack Obama to show his college transcripts and his passport application. 0. Donald Trump, of course, did all that. Joining me now, MSNBC contributor Josh Barrow, senior editor at Business Insider. I mean, I guess I think they must think that this sort of gaslighting en masse is going to work because it'll muddy the waters enough.
Yeah, and you see it with all sorts of things, with Mike Pence today being like, oh, our campaign's not about insults. It's the other campaign that's all about insults.
Yes, I want to read this, actually.
Yeah.
This is Mike Pence today actually said this. The other campaign seems to be an avalanche of insults. This campaign is not about insults on our side. It's about ideas. This is after he called Robert Gates a clown this weekend, insulted Maureen Dowd, the New York Times, and CNN.
Yeah, and then it's, you know, I have the best temperament. Basically, whatever criticisms Hillary throws at him, he just throws right back at Hillary as though they were about her. And the thing is, I think, you know, these are, as you say, they're not just lies, they're transparently ridiculous lies, but I think part of the reason Trump gets away with this is that most of his supporters know that he's lying when he says these things. They think that they're looking at him, and you see this in press interviews and from pollsters, that it's not like Trump's supporters, by and large, think Donald Trump is perfect. They admit, oh, he goes too far, oh,
right.
that thing
Yes.
he said was ridiculous. This idea that he has on immigration, it's to an extreme, but I don't think he's really going to do that when he's president. And then the flip side of it is the voters who really want the extreme immigration stuff say, oh, when he talks about a softening, that's just for the media. He's going to do this thing he's going to do. So I think there is a toleration among his voters for the idea that a lot of the things that he's not going to say are true. And that's why when it becomes totally obvious that he's lying, that doesn't damage his brand.
And then you see, I mean, Jake Tapper in the interview is a perfect example. He's literally, as Chris Christie is saying these things, saying, well, it's not true. It's not true. I mean, he's doing the right thing, right? But you sort of see this sort of real existential problem, particularly with the birther thing, right? You saw the press kind of revolt en masse, and they're still revolting, saying, we were there, we know this, you cannot tell us. I mean, we're going to get to a point where he's going to look at Lester Holt at the first debate and be like, I was actually a senator from New York. And what is Lester Holt going to say? Like, it's like talking to a person who's actually clinically not sane.
Well, and so I think one thing we're learning here is, because I see on Twitter all the time all these people being like, why doesn't the media hold Trump accountable on his tax returns? And it's like, we've asked, we've demanded over and over and over. We can't compel him to release them. Similarly, when people lie about things, one of the main things that restrains people from lying when they are revealed as liars is shame. That they
people don't like being seen as liars.
Right. They know the game is up. They know it's been proved that they lied, and then they have to apologize. They feel, but Donald Trump, because he is incapable of shame, is actually demonstrating something very dangerous, which is just that if you insist you didn't do anything wrong, you can get away with a lot of things, even when it's obvious to everyone that you did something wrong, and other people only don't get away with it because they give up.
You know, this point about shame, I think, is key, because people have to understand that so much of the restraints on power are these sort of conceptions of norms. We've seen this in this campaign just lay waste to them. Jonathan Martin had a pretty good essay on this in the New York Times. People have to think about this seriously in the context of the presidency. I mean, you know, Matt Iglesias once had this thought experiment about how, like, a president could have, like, you know, one of the people who work for him, like, murder the Senate Majority Leader in the House and then pardon him. Like, that would be, the Constitution allows him, like, he could pardon anyone he wants. Like, he wouldn't do that because it's horrible, and would, like, people need to understand that how much the norms are restraining whatever it is that the presidency does.
Right, and in general, it will be in much more banal ways than what you just described.
Yes, obviously,
and therefore, and therefore it won't generate the outrage that it should. I feel two different, there's a good and a bad thing about Trump being the embodiment of this. One is Trump is such an unusual figure. If he loses, I don't think somebody can just step into his shoes and replicate exactly what he's done. I think his bizarre personality is a key element of the political movement that he's led. On the other hand, he might win this election and become president, and he can do the thing only he could do.
Josh Barrow, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Still to come, President Obama